less than 24 hours, Georgians will be under a shelter-in-place order.
McDonald, though, said he did not know the man was handcuffed and was trying to use his foot to pin him to the ground so he could be handcuffed.
If your friends, neighbors, or local organizations are not complying, report them to us.
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the Free Georgia Podcast. My name is Jake Green. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm going to get all the housekeeping stuff out of the way at the beginning of these shows now, and then maybe touch on them again at the end. But if you enjoy this show, if you get any type of insight, knowledge, entertainment, any of that, anything that's valuable to you, please subscribe on whatever platform that you listen to or watch this podcast, and definitely leave us reviews and comments, because that's what drives engagement. That's what gets more people involved. That's what puts us in the algorithm, and that's really what we need in order to spread these messages wide and far. So this month, we're focusing on education. Today, we're having our candidate for lieutenant governor join us, and we're going to talk about his campaign, and we're really going to try to focus on school choice. And now joining us is Mr. Ryan Graham, used to be the chair of LP Georgia, is now candidate for lieutenant governor. Ryan,
hey,
welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's Education Month here at LP Georgia, and I am far beyond my years of public education or college or anything like that. I have no kids to have to deal with any of that. And so I'm not exactly the right one to speak to all these issues. But I understand it's one of the principal things in your campaign.
Yeah, so my number one platform plank is educational freedom, and I like to say that instead of school choice, because I think school choice is just like a brick in that road, right? I mean, it's just like one step on the path, and it really depends on how it's implemented, for whether or not it actually gets us further or not, because people call different things school choice. And if it actually, if it really limits our choices, is it school choice? And we can talk about that a little bit more. I don't know what the schedule looks like for you, but my big thing is making sure that we get politicians and bureaucrats out of the classroom and leave our education up to students, teachers, and parents. And I like to say in that order too, right? Students should be really driving their own education, in my opinion. And I think that they usually have better outcomes when they're allowed to do that, and when they're not limited by, state regulations.
I gotcha. So like as lieutenant governor, what would be your step one to start implementing that road?
Yeah. So, I mean, lieutenant governor generally, they don't generally get a vote or anything. They are more of a leader of the Senate. They're technically the president of the Senate, as per the Constitution. But the thing is they've got all these rules in the Senate that get adjusted per session. And chances are if a Democrat or a Libertarian won and there was a Republican majority in the Senate, they would just take all the power away from the lieutenant governor. So what I would anticipate my role would be finding those senators who are willing to sponsor bills, and using the position as a bully pulpit to make sure that different things happen. And so taking my time to make sure I could find those champions within the Senate, and then giving them the ability to really stand up and push something good through. That would be my role as lieutenant governor. So gotcha. Bully pulpit, preaching.
Gotcha. Do you know of any people currently in the Senate who would be amenable to this kind of idea?
It's been a mixed bag. And so some of them really like the idea of school choice, but what they end up putting through is less than desirable, I'll say. And so, you get these guys, and it's really hard for me to tell if they are, really for school choice, or if they're kind of trying to ride a wave, or what they're doing. But we had it was a House bill, actually, HB 999 last year, that didn't end up passing. It actually didn't end up passing because the Speaker Ralston got really offended by some outside lobbying they sent out a mailer saying if you don't like school choice, you're standing with Pelosi, right? I mean, it was real simple, kind of stupid rhetoric.
Okay.
But basically, he got all offended by that and said, "Oh, you're saying we're standing with Pelosi?" I'm like, well, no, not if you support school choice. But he
Like,
pulled
there's a
thing.
solution here.
Yeah, exactly. But he actually very publicly said this is the reason we're not going to support it, is because these mailers came from out of the state. And it's like, well, me as a Georgian, I support this. So what about me? You're going to pull it because of these clowns over here. And I agree. It was not the best mailer. It was kind of a waste of money. But who cares what those out-of-staters think? You should care what I think. I live here.
What the heck does that have to do with anything? Like, your pride got hurt a little bit, and so you like destroy a bill.
Yeah, well, Ralston's his track record's not amazing. People know a lot about him, and he's just, I don't know, he's a go along to get along guy. He's an old school Dixiecrat, I mean,
Gotcha.
that's his thing. He's been around for a long time, and he doesn't care about big government, and he likes to flex his muscles. So
I see. Just for people who don't know, like, what are like more of the responsibilities of the lieutenant governor?
yeah, so it's like what I said, in the Constitution, it's basically laid out that, you're backup for the governor if the governor becomes indisposed for whatever reason.
Mhm.
So you would act as governor if they were incapacitated. So if something happened to Shane, God forbid, I would, step in and take his place. And then they are also the president of the Senate, which, again, all those rules are not really actually laid out in the Constitution. It just says you're the president of the Senate, and that's that.
Mhm.
And then the Senate gets to really decide what that means. so I would preside, but like I said, they would probably pull any real power out of the position as soon as I was in it, and that backup would end up being what it is. And the bully pulpit is really what it's all about. I would get media, I'd get to talk about all the issues I want, and then I would also get time to talk to the senators about what we want to accomplish. If they don't pull the teeth, right, if they don't take all the power away, I would have the ability to like appoint committee chairs and stuff. So that's a really powerful place where you can say, look, on criminal justice, I'm going to put maybe this Democrat in place because they're a little bit better on criminal justice. At least they say they are, right? And then I can whip them on that and say, this is what I kind of expect out of the chair of something with criminal justice. And then I might put a Republican in charge of something more to do with economics, and then sort of whip them on that too, and make sure that they stand by the things that they say. And so those are things that could happen. Again, highly doubtful. But I'd love to put them in that position to take that power from me anyway, because they'd have to explain it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I would imagine a lot of people don't know what the lieutenant governor, because I talked to Martin Cowan a few weeks ago. I imagine people don't know what that position does. Attorney General, Secretary of State. Like, I just think most people don't know exactly what these roles do.
Yeah, no, 4 years ago, I ran for Public Service Commission, and man, most of my campaign was just like teaching people what a public service commissioner was, because no one knows. But it's so funny because they like literally dictate like how power is generated in Georgia, how it's distributed, and how much it's going to cost. Like, it's a central planning committee. It's straight out of Soviet Russia. It's terrible. Like,
I mean, it's crazy. And what wasn't that race just canceled?
Yes, yeah. I guess they decided that because no black candidate had won in however long, that black people's vote was being like dispersed or oppressed or something, watered down. I don't know the word they used, but they basically said the proof is here and we're going to cancel it until you guys can figure out what it is. So the funny thing is I actually fully agree that it should be districted. I don't necessarily agree with that reasoning. It's pretty silly that you qualify. So to qualify for that position, you have to live in the district, and then everyone in the state gets to vote. So I'm, like that doesn't make any sense, and it should change. And I had talked about lobbying for that, but that's a lot of work for something that doesn't matter a ton. So I decided against it. But yeah, I'm so then they just flat out canceled it now. So I'm like, okay, well, And then, so there's long-term ramifications for the Libertarian Party of Georgia on that, actually, because so to maintain our ballot access for statewide candidates, every 2 years we have to have at least a single statewide candidate get it basically at least 2% of the vote. Is what it's sort of the math's not exactly 2%, but that's basically what it is. And so in 2024, we only have a public service commission and president. And so if we lose the public service commission, then our president has to get 2% of the vote, and that does not generally happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, we may lose our ballot access if we don't find a way to get a good turnout for our president in 2024.
Which our ballot access is already crap. So
Yep.
that would just be that would be a travesty. Like, who knew you could just cancel elections? I mean, like, can we cancel all the other ones too? Like, is this just going to be a dictatorship?
Well, and my thing is so based on that logic, like, aren't all the statewide positions actually like watering down the black vote? Like, technically, wouldn't we be able to apply that same thing to all these other positions?
Yeah.
I mean, I would think we would.
I don't understand how they come to the conclusion of, well, we're going to say it's racist, so let's just go ahead and cancel the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's mind blowing. Like you said, like it has ramifications that maybe those are the ramifications they intended for us to have even less ballot access. Fair.
I doubt they gave us very much thought.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, no, and you know, the lawyer that's involved in that case is actually our lawyer for ballot access. It's the same guy. And so, you know, he's not out there trying to screw us over. We've had conversations about it. So I know that, I think their heart's in the right place. I just think they're wrong. And then also the law is just really, it's a really bad law. I mean, it's not their fault. It's a bad law. I mean, they're literally trying to help us too. So
true. It also kind of sounds like their heart should be in a different place, even if it is in the right place.
Well, in PSC, I'm like, good luck getting anybody to care about PSC, even through this. I mean,
yeah,
Yeah,
I had no idea what that position was, even at convention, and someone was trying to get me to run for it, and like they had to explain it to me like 6 different times, and I finally understood what the heck they were saying.
Yeah, it's real bad though. I mean, it is real bad. And then it's funny. So in the debate, I was tying. So if you regulate an industry, people from that industry cannot donate to your campaign. It makes sense, right? You can't, like, Georgia Power can't donate to a public service commission campaign,
right?
But what ends up happening, as with any rule, people find their way around it, and so you could find one degree of separation from these organizations that are regulated. And my incumbent opponent got, like, it was something crazy, like 85% of his donations were from people with like 1 degree away. And so it was like the lawyer firm that represented Georgia Power, every individual lawyer, their wives, their kids, they were all like max donors. And so I asked him in the debate about that. And he just said, oh, well, that's you're sourcing like a liberal news source, and so it can't be trusted. And I'm like, oh yeah, but I double checked it. Like, the data is still the data. Yeah. So, and then he turned around and so, for people who don't know, the format of the debates for the Atlanta Press Club is everyone gets to pick a candidate and ask a single question of them. So my question was to him. His question was to me. And so the Democrat got left out there. But he asked me why I wanted to abolish public schools and why I wanted to legalize heroin.
What?
I know. It threw me for such a loop. I was already so nervous too. I was like so nervous. And then he asked me that, and I'm like,
just out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like prepared. No, that like completely caught off guard. That's right. Such a weird question to ask in that scenario.
Well, and I totally, I talked about legalizing heroin, which, talking about how it should be a health concern. We shouldn't be throwing people in jail over it, obviously. But with abolishing public schools, I'm not actually necessarily on track to do that, right? Like, I don't like public education. I don't think it's very good. I think they should have to compete in the market. And if they are not able to compete in the market, they should close down. I think they will close down, and everything will get better. But if I'm wrong, it just means that they got better, and it's a win-win for everybody, in my opinion. If they get better, and are able to compete with private choices, that's good. That's a net gain for everybody. And if they fail and have to close down, that's also good and a net gain for everybody because they failed.
Yeah, I would say the more things fail in government, usually the more money is thrown at them
So
until
yeah,
they
that
might succeed.
yeah, I mean that's the problem. They don't have to compete with dollars because they're getting a free flow of dollars no matter what, and that is the problematic nature of
Yeah.
public goods.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Talking about educational freedom, like what like so we talked about school choice a little bit. What like you wanted to differentiate between those two? Like what exactly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the best way to do it is to so I actually wrote an article on lpgeorgia.com that was called Educational Freedom versus School Choice, and it broke down that bill I talked about earlier, HB 999 from last year. And basically it said all these, it's good. It said, here's $6,000 for you if you want to go to some alternative education choice besides public. But it had all these strings, right? As they do, right? It was a longer bill than just here's $6,000 if you so choose to use it. And so part of the problem was it only applied to certain students, right? So you had to have been enrolled in public school already for at least 6 weeks in a single year prior to enrolling in a qualified school, which means like you couldn't already have had one of these alternative choices when the bill gets passed. Otherwise, like if you were already looking for other options or already in other options, you didn't qualify. It was only public school students looking to get out of it, not private school students who are already, or homeschool students who are already out of the system.
Okay.
Like, well, thanks a lot, jerks.
Yeah. What the heck?
So my kid wouldn't have qualified.
Right.
So the other thing that they did is they made the parents, it would have made parents sign an agreement promising that any curriculum that was taught had reading, grammar, mathematics, social studies, and science, which is like, well, okay, now you're getting rid of the choice part of it, right? Because you're conforming it to what public school is. Now you're saying, you have a choice except for it's, this brand of white bread or this brand of white bread.
Right. Yeah, you're basically just going from one thing to the next.
I think the metaphor I use is you can go to a burger joint, but if you look at the menu, all you got is burgers, right?
Right. Exactly.
So the other thing, and then they had qualified student expenses. So basically they would dictate these are what students should be spending money on as qualified. And so they'd have a list of things that were like, here's what students should have, which is just like completely repressive to innovation. The whole thing is like repressive to innovation and says like, you're going to teach exactly the way that we expect you to, the politicians, not the educators.
Right.
And if you don't, then you're not going to get access to this money, which is, it's just insanity to me.
Yeah, like where's the choice in that? Like I don't understand how they would consider that a school choice bill.
Yeah. And so that was on the student side, and the parent side, really. On the school side, they had to submit financial reports that demonstrated financial soundness, as determined by a committee that gets created. So they're actually increasing the size and scope of government with this by creating a committee that would take in all this information and decide, give an opinion on whether or not they're financially sound or not, which also can be pretty problematic if, maybe you got a Karen on there and you pissed her off. And, all of a sudden you're a no vote, right? Who cares about the kids? And then no new schools. They had to have been in operation for over a year already. So you couldn't have seen this bill and said, you know what, I really want to teach. Now that I think there's more of a market for this and I want to teach, I can't get into it unless I invest a year of potential losses before I can even access, this education money. So then there was health and safety laws and codes. I think that makes sense. That's not too crazy. And then they had only employing teachers who have bachelor's degree or higher, or at least 3 years experience in education. So they're saying you have to go through the system first. Again, killing innovation, right?
That's crazy. I would even push back a little bit on the health and safety bit. Like, I mean, if they have control over that, then they're going to be mandating vaccines and crap like that. Like,
They could. Yep.
yeah,
Absolutely. They could say they could do that.
I wouldn't give that a pass either. That's crazy.
Yep. Yep. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. And then they also added some standardized testing language in there that basically said, you know, we're not going to qualify your school if you don't have these standardized tests. Again, making it so that it's not actually a choice because they have to teach to the standardized test. And now everyone's getting the same education anyway. So what the heck is the point? May as well send them to public education.
Seriously, like that just seems like they completely mutilated what the bill was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Is there
So
more?
there's this other piece, right? So this is where it got really rich because this doesn't actually mean anything. There's one line in the bill that said, and I'm going to read it, and it might get a little wordy. So if you have to ask questions, please do.
Okay.
But the creation of the program or the granting of an account pursuant to this chapter shall not be construed to imply that a public school did not provide a free and appropriate public education for a student or constituent or constitute a waiver or admission by the state. So basically they're like, if you take advantage of this, it's not because public school sucks. And we're going to put that into law.
What? So now they're like outlawing opinions.
Yeah. So by law, it's not because public school sucks.
Wow. I mean, that's like straight out of like Animal Farm.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely.
What the heck? What a stupid thing to.
I know.
What
I'm like, they must have
gosh.
like some like teachers union or something must have like requested that verbiage or something. You know, like it's just so weird.
That is so weird. Like, I just don't even understand how that would be put into law. Like, what's the penalty for that?
So yeah, like, and if you went to court and you tried to like say on the stand, well, I took my kid to this other alternative because public education, what I should say, the public school that I would have gone to did not provide a free and appropriate public education for my student. What would they do? What would I have broken the law if I said that?
Yeah, and like so. Yeah, what would like the punishment for any of this have been? Like,
that I don't know. I mean, the rest of all that other stuff is you just wouldn't be eligible to the $6,000 that's being made available to your students. So you wouldn't have been punished or anything. They just wouldn't have given you the money.
Right.
But it's still, I mean, so my kid goes to, people that listen to this might know what this is, but we take her to a facility that is considered an unschool. And it's all self-directed education. My kid, she goes to school every day and she talks to facilitators who are her friends, and they basically ask her what she wants to learn about, and then they facilitate that learning. So if she's like just watched something on TV over the weekend that had to do with like dolphins or space, and she'll go to school and say, this week I really want to learn about space or dolphins or whatever, or space dolphins. And they'll sit there and they'll go find materials, like they'll find YouTube information, they'll find books, they'll, talk about stuff, they'll go learn about it and then come back in and they'll do like an activity. But they're letting it's all like the student drives their own education. And so things don't necessarily happen in standard orders. Kids learn how to read because they're around words. You know what I mean? Like, like kids learn how to read. So it's not, that's not, you don't have to like put that on them. And then like someday my daughter might go in there and be like, I really want to practice reading. And then the facilitator will help her work on that, and she'll do better at it because she wanted it. She wasn't like forced to sit at a desk, learn how to read before she was ready, before she even wanted to. And then like learned how to hate school, because we all learned to hate school because we were forced to do things we didn't want, right? And we learned about the mitochondria and whatever that we never use ever.
Correct.
So but the thing is this type of schooling, it's radical, right? It's completely radical. It's completely innovative, and it would not qualify under this bill under any circumstances. They in fact do not qualify for many grants because grants require different standardized testing and stuff, and they're just like, we're not
Right.
doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many problems with standardized testing, but I mean, I remember. So I grew up going to private school, and then my family moved to Virginia, where we homeschooled for a year and a half.
Mhm.
Homeschooling was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like
Yeah.
that. I mean, I loved my private school was great. Like I still, I'm friends with 5 guys from since kindergarten. So like I made my best friends in private school. But man, homeschooling was amazing. I could do like I'm very good. I was always very good at like testing and all that kind of stuff. And like I'm terrible at doing my homework, but I'm good at solving problems and testing. And so like I could get through my day in 2 hours and then go play. You
Yep.
know, like
Yep.
and go play in the woods behind our house and explore and do all sorts of stuff the kids are supposed to do rather than sit behind a desk for 7 hours and learn things that you're not ready to learn or you don't want to learn.
Well, that's, I mean, to me, homework is just like such a control mechanism, and it's like, to me, I'm like, you mean you had my kid for 7 to 8 hours today, and you couldn't teach them everything they needed, and now you need to take them away from family time to keep them in the same mindset, and they're gonna hate that too. We actually sent our daughter to we tried like kind of a charter school situation, which is pretty close to public school in general. She had to sit in a desk all day. She had to learn whatever, ask permission to get up and all that stuff. She hated it a lot. But she also brought home homework. And the very first day she brought home homework, we told her that it was up to her if she wanted to do it or not. That we would support her regardless, and that she didn't have to do it if she didn't want to.
Yeah.
So
I support that decision. Homework is such a joke, man. I never understood that why people had to do 4 hours worth of homework after going to school for 8 hours.
yeah, it's control. It's all about control. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad news. And they've actually done studies now. So if you want to, hashtag follow the science, homework is not good for education. So
Interesting.
stop doing it.
I had no idea that they'd done studies on stuff like that.
Yeah. Because I mean, what do you take? There's opportunity cost in that. So like, should they work their multiplication tables at home, or should they be getting some other kind of enrichment that they are not usually getting at school, that's making them more of a whole human being? So
It's interesting. That's good to know that people are actually trying to explore that kind of stuff and figure out what's good for the kids. That's
yeah,
awesome.
unfortunately, those people that are exploring that are not the ones who are
In charge.
making all these rules about our education, which is why politicians are the worst people in the world to do it.
Yep.
They're just like, well, I did it this way, so if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for everybody else. Because we never got better at anything ever in the history of humankind. We never got better.
Oh man. What else would be like part of your educational freedom platform?
I mean, so
where else would it go?
Yeah, the big point is just making sure I can find everywhere in the Georgia code where politicians are inserting themselves into our education system, and really just trying to cross that line out. I mean, most of the bills that I want to put forth are strike throughs. I don't want to add much. I just want to cross things out.
Yeah.
So, but as far as educational freedom goes, it's all about empowering the students and teachers and making sure that they're able to do what they want to do. And if you talk to teachers, a lot of times they don't like any of this stuff. They feel like their hands are tied. They're not, they're getting told exactly what they have to teach. And they're like, well, this is what's important to me, or this is how I want to do it. And they're not allowed to in a lot of cases. And so I want to kind of untie them and let them free. And a lot of them don't even appreciate like the teachers union and what they represent and what they end up fighting for. But they're forced to be part of the teachers union as part of, I mean, like legally even. And so they have to participate in that. And I think they just want to get out there and like teach kids. A lot of teachers just want to get out there and teach kids, and they should be allowed to without politicians.
It's interesting. So they in order to teach at a public school, you have to be part of the teachers union?
It might not be true in Georgia. I'd have to go citation needed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I
Yeah,
like and like
I'm pretty sure they do, but citation needed.
Gotcha. And like I said at the beginning, like I know nothing about the educational system in Georgia. I grew up in Texas, so like I know a little bit there. My brother was a teacher there, but like I just don't know much about the education system here. So this is
Yeah.
all news to me.
Well, I came up in the public education world,
Mhm.
so that's I was schooled the whole way. And when I first was trying to figure out what we were gonna do with my daughter, I was like, well, I came through public education. It's good enough for me. It's good enough for good enough for her, right?
Mhm.
Um, but then my wife got me on the 7 lessons that are taught by I forget what the actual art. I'll find it.
Yeah, find it. We have plenty of time. This is not a time constrained podcast.
Are you editing this, or is there gonna be, like, a big awkward,
There won't be a big awkward silence if I just keep talking nonsense while you
No,
do a
I
search.
got it, though. It's, John Taylor
Perfect.
Gatto's 7 Lessons School Teach,
I
and
love
it go
John Taylor Gatto.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually you can find it in multiple places. I found this, like she sent me a couple of different links, and I found this, like, beautiful, hyperlinked thing it was super nice, but I went through it, and I was just like, "No, no, dear God, we're not sending our daughter to that." That's not I mean, I just read the one piece and was just like, "You know what? All of this happened to me, and I
Mm.
don't want this to happen to her." You're right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Michael Malice always says that public school is the most likely place where a kid's going to encounter physical harm,
Yeah.
um, and there are many, many, many studies to back that up. And that it, it it's hard to think of a scenario where you wouldn't want to try to keep your kids out of harm's way, and especially going to a public school where they're supposed to be taught and like with their peers and not not always tense and on edge and, fearing something.
Well, they are taught things, just nothing that we want our kids to learn.
Are they taught things?
It's all about, like, adherence to rules and,
Right.
making sure that you're becoming homogenous with the society, and, there's all kinds of bad lessons being taught to make sure that we all know our place, and it's not the top, right? To
Mhm.
make sure that we do as we're told and we know our place.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
wasn't it originally a oppression system for
yeah.
getting people compliant with following rules and going into the army?
In fact, factory workers, right? I mean, it turns out
Factory.
it actually is a really good system for creating good factory workers who basically sit in a line and do one thing all day, every day on to the widget, right? You got a widget and it needs a
Mhm.
spring, and you add the spring to it over and over and over, 8 hours a day, forever, and that's your job. And it turns out that it's really good for creating that guy.
Mm.
But that's not what America is anymore. I
Yeah.
would maybe argue it's not quite what America ever was.
Mm.
And we need to get out of that so that we can get better about what we're already getting better at, which is like using our brains and having ideas, and being more of an idea market as opposed to creating widgets.
Gotcha. Well, creating widgets. I love that. Yeah, I feel like there are plenty of
Widgets and what it's
machines now that can create those widgets and weapons.
Yep,
um,
thingamabobbers.
I don't know about you, but I get bombarded with Stacey Abrams ads right now. And one of her
Where?
oh my gosh, where not?
I'm on like premium YouTube, so I don't get ads there. I don't have cable, so it's not
Oh,
there. I just
okay.
like I don't see any of it.
Well, one of her biggest things is increasing the budget for public education, increasing teacher salaries, basically pouring a whole lot of money into the public education system, which, if I'm not wrong, has been done repeatedly over the past however long Georgia's been around.
Yeah, everywhere across the board. You go and you look at education budgets, and I mean it's the same. I'll say it's actually the same exact argument for people who talk about the police and their budgets.
Mm,
Um, Budgets for public programs are upward. They always are upward, and in fact, when they tell you it's cut, generally it's not actually cut, but it is not increased by the amount that they expected it to be increased by.
right.
So if they expected, $10 million increase and it only went up $5 million increase, they say it's a cut.
Yeah.
Even though it went up by $5 million. Everyone else in the world calls that an increase. Government calls it a cut.
Yeah, they just did that with the military. I forget how much, but they were planning on allocating this amount, and they gave much less, but they still set aside hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, so they pump money into it, and it doesn't seem to ever create different outcomes. So I don't know why it would help now. Brian Kemp did the same thing. He gave teachers $5,000. I think Stacey Abrams wants to give teachers $5,000. She might be saying 10,000 just to like one up them or something.
Yeah, I think it's more than 5 this time. I actually thought it was 10.
It might. Right? That's just like the made up number that sounds good rhetorically, but I don't know where she's going to find the money. Georgia has to have a balanced budget. It's in the Constitution. So good luck with that. I guess she determines what balanced is. So I guess she could do something there. But like I said, good luck. And then also it won't do anything. So, you're not trying to solve anything. They also came out today and maybe yesterday and said free technical school in Georgia. So like your 2-year degrees and your vocational schools would be free, which, we all know that they're not free. They're being paid for by you and me and them and everyone else.
That term free is so frustrating.
Yeah. And here's the deal. I think technical schools are a really great route. I think that more students should pick that instead of going to 13th grade. They should learn to work on HVAC units and learn to be welders and electricians and all these different things that we need to build up infrastructure and build up the things that we're doing right now. And there's good money in it. You can make a really good living doing that.
Phenomenal living.
Yeah. The need is there. I think more students need to know about those opportunities prior to 13th grade, which is what I'm calling your 4-year university. That's why I went because that was like the next. I didn't think there was another option. I was like, oh no, you go to college next. That's what you do. It's 13th grade.
Yep.
And if I would have known there was another option, I don't know if I would have taken it. I don't know what I would have done. But I think that they need to do a better job explaining what the options are to students before they get there, and that more students should take those technical school route. But
you're absolutely right. Like the way I grew up, it was go to high school, go to college, get a job, have a family, and grow old. And that no one ever told me that there were other options out there besides that. And I went to 1 semester of college and was miserable, quit, got a job.
I did 7 years and got a 4-year degree.
I did end up going back. I actually went to SCAD in Savannah.
Oh, right on. Cool. They actually are well known for teaching kind of, artists how to make money doing artistry, which is, at least it's a little bit better than some of your other art schools in that way.
It could be. I don't have any experience with other art schools, but as far as like the film school there, man, they didn't teach us how to make any money.
Oh, great.
Like, honestly, my biggest advice, I tell almost every single creative person that I know who's in high school, if their parents come to me and they're like, my kid is thinking about going to SCAD, I'm like, please don't go to SCAD.
It's also very expensive.
It's insanely expensive. Like, do not go to SCAD. If you're trying to be in film, go to a city that films a lot of movies. Go be a PA, because you can be a PA with no experience on any other show, and you're going to learn more in 1 week doing that than you will the entire time you're at SCAD.
So I did, I have a computer science degree, and I learned probably more in the first month than I did in my 7 years. That should have been 4 years. And I learned more in that first month than I ever learned. I actually switched like languages from what I learned, and like just I don't know. I did a lot better job. And then the best team I ever worked on was after I had gotten out of programming myself. I'm now an IT project manager, but I worked on a team where I was the only computer science degree holder. Everyone else was some other 4-year degree. There was like an electrical engineer, a nuclear engineer, a biologist, and they all just like quit those fields because there's not a lot, there's not as much to do there, and they'd like switched and did like a boot camp for like 2 months or like a 1 month boot camp for computer science, and they got a job. They're the best devs I've worked with, like bar none. So I would even go into other companies and be like, you want to hire people out of boot camps instead of these 4-year degree programs because they're going to be better.
Absolutely. Those are people who took initiative and like started a completely different route from what they
Yep.
were doing before. Like
Yep.
that takes a lot of guts, and then they made it all the way through the boot camp. So it took a lot of skill to get through that. Like those kind of people are impressive. Like
Yeah.
those are the people you want to hire.
Yeah, but I think the boot camp thing is just like, it just makes more sense. And then or even just hire somebody who's interested in it and like teach them. It's not terribly hard to,
Yeah.
you know, appoint them to a mentor and just be like, "Hey, learn something," and then like go write some code.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not actually that bad.
My brother's doing that right now.
Yeah.
He quit teaching because he had a terrible experience at a public school in
Running them
Dallas.
off.
Yep. And he was like, I think I can make a lot coding. And so one of his really good friends is an amazing coder. And so he just
Yep.
teaches him a little bit every day, and he, is learning a new skill and gonna create a career out of it.
Yeah, I mean, to anyone listening who's trying to decide right now, you can make a lot of money coding right now. It's nuts. I mean, I'm a project manager, and I was just looking for a job, and I was getting like just interview after interview after interview. It was like stressful how much I was interviewing. So
Interesting.
good problem to have.
Yeah, coding was just never my thing. I took some computer science in high school. My dad is a computer science guy, and he like can code all over the place. But I
Yeah,
don't,
you got the
don't have
creative
that.
brain.
Yeah, I don't have that. I can't sit at a computer and type all day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not for me.
Right on.
Ryan, why should people vote for you to be lieutenant governor?
Because I'm totally different from what your options are at a Republican and Democrat. What I've actually been thinking about is that the Republican and Democrat are, I mean, they're basically, if you could make each of them in a factory and pull out like what your stereotypical whatever would be, it's them. They say all the same stuff. Charlie Bailey just basically says anything Stacey Abrams says. He's like, yeah, me too. me too. Yeah, that's what I think. I don't know what he thinks, actually. I have no idea what he thinks. And Burt Jones is, he's a big Trump guy, and you can tell he is just glomming on and hoping that what he has hitched his star to takes him somewhere. But he doesn't really believe in very much. He brags about a lot of big government spending, a lot of programs that he's created and all that stuff. He's not, he's not small government by any means. So I'm the only one in this race who's actually supporting, for one, and as far as education goes, I'm supporting teachers because I'm saying let them teach, for God's sake, let them teach. And I'm the one talking about education. I'm also talking about criminal justice reform. We get made fun of a lot. Legalize cannabis already. Just do it. Like, it's not hard. Everyone wants it. Just do it. Like, quit talking about it. The Democratic opponent claims he wants to do it, but he was an assistant DA for quite some time, and I keep looking for his record, his prosecutorial record on possession of cannabis. I don't know how to find it, but I know it. I know he's done it. So quit talking about legalizing it when your record is you threw people in jail for it.
Right.
And Burt Jones
familiar.
has never. What's that?
Sounds familiar. Something like what our vice president has done.
Oh yeah, yes, right. Did you see how upset they were about the athlete in Russia that got 9 years? And I'm like, let me tell you about what people get in America.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about what you gave people in America.
Right. I mean, how crazy is that? Like, yes, exactly. Spot on. Like she thinks it's some big travesty, which it is. It is a travesty that she's, over there in prison. But Kamala thinks it's some big travesty that she is, and she's the one who put people away for life for possession.
Yeah.
Like, what is wrong with you? You can't be. You have to be some type of sociopath in order to have that kind of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah. And so in Athens, they just decriminalized under an ounce. They made it a $35 fee. And so the original fee was going to be $1. But their counsel or whatever was telling them that they have to pay the state every time they write a citation $35. And so they have to make it at least $35. So they made it $35. And I'm like, how about you just stop? How about you just don't write the citation?
There we go. That's such an easier solution.
Like, why must it be illegal? Just don't do it. Whack jobs.
Oh, well, since we write the citation, we have to pay for that. So the taxpayer needs to pay.
Yeah, you have to pay for it, actually, even though we don't really think what you're doing is wrong and you should only really have to pay $1 for some reason, for some undisclosed reason. Instead, we're going to make you pay for this $35 fee that the state charges us. What?
That is unbelievable.
What? So yeah, criminal justice reform. I'm also talking about ending sovereign immunity, which is what it is in Georgia. But that's basically where government and government employees cannot be sued by members of the public for things that they do while they're completing their job. This qualified immunity is what people normally call it, but in Georgia, it's sovereign immunity. They go kind of hand in hand, but Georgia actually has sovereign immunity codified, and so that's what we fight here.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and then civil asset forfeiture, obviously, ending that, making sure that police are not able to use that in their budgets. They shouldn't be allowed to do it at all because it's a Fourth Amendment violation to take people's property without due process, and that's what they're doing. So those are the big issues that I'm talking about that you probably will not hear from the other candidates. And then I'm also talking about election reform. So the big one for us is ballot access, making sure that the voters are able to vote for whoever they want, right? Anyone they want. I don't actually care. It shouldn't be up to politicians who I'm allowed to vote for or not. And right now in Georgia, it is. They say you have to prove yourself, and they don't have to prove themselves, which is pretty atrocious. And so we're working on that, working on hand-marked paper ballots. I've been doing that since they passed the law that approved the Dominion voting machines. I've been involved in multiple lawsuits. When I was chair of LP Georgia, I would appoint poll watchers from an organization that was suing the state to try to get rid of these ballot machines, and they were basically collecting evidence for their court case to make sure that we could get rid of those because they're problematic. I'm not on the Trump train, and I'm not saying that the election was stolen or anything like that. I'm saying we can't prove it either way. There's no evidence because the voting system actually sucks. It's not auditable. There's no trail. You can't actually go in and look at it and look for evidence because the system, it hides all of it. And it's been exposed. So it's very problematic. Actually, people involved in the Trump campaign are the ones who went into Coffee County, allegedly, I think I'm supposed to say still, and gained access to the Dominion voting software and have had access to it now for a little while so that they could, they can look at it and see what kind of problems it has and learn how to hack it. I mean, I'm not saying they're doing it, but they have access to it right now.
Right.
So, there's a lot of problems there. And so I've been fighting for that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a huge problem with digital voting. I have a huge problem with mail-in voting. Like, I think if you can't be bothered to get off your ass for one day to go and stand in a line and vote, then you don't deserve to be heard, honestly.
I mean, so the thing is in Georgia, people who say that they're making it really hard to vote, it's absurd. Georgia is one of the easiest states to vote in right now. The no excuse absentee, which I'm going to disagree with you. I like the absentee voting. I think I like going in and voting, casting my vote in person, but like, it's fine. I don't care. If you want to do absentee, do absentee. You can do that. You have 3 weeks of early voting. You have multiple mandated Saturday voting days that you can go in, or you can go in on election day, whatever you choose. I choose to go in on the second week. You get a rush in the first week and a rush in the last week. I go in the second week. It takes me 2 minutes. I'm in, I'm out, I'm done. I live in a predominantly black area of Atlanta. I go in on the second week and I'm golden. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, but
Yeah.
voting in Georgia is pretty easy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I can't tell you how many times I don't know how many times I voted in Georgia, but it is quick and painless. You're in and you're out. Like I've voted multiple different places because I've lived in different places, and like
Right.
I've never had one issue. I've never seen there be any type of problem. I've never waited in a line for 12 hours,
No.
which I did in Los Angeles. Like Los
Yeah.
Angeles was nuts. That place was a crapshoot.
Right. But then I bet the California government wouldn't, or the LA government would not be accused of the same things that they are here.
Correct. Correct.
The other thing that we do that's real, I mean, I know we're probably wrapping up soon, but the
Oh, good.
other big issue that with election reform is ranked choice voting. So we
Mm.
have this really great and stupid uh, policy in Georgia where we do this runoff system, right? I love it. I actually love that we require a majority vote to elect somebody. 50% plus one. We don't do first past the post, which is very problematic. We require you to get a majority vote to be elected to office.
Mhm.
Now, the implementation of that is so stupid.
Yes.
Because what we do is this runoff thing that everybody hates, right? I mean, that's people blame us for all this, and I'm like, dude, we didn't write the law. If you elect us, we'll get rid of it. I promise. Um, because what we end up doing is, we drop off the lowest vote getter, and then we make everybody come back after
Yeah.
they've been, campaigned at for another however many weeks,
Mhm.
and it's this stupid system, and then you get crazy low turnout for the runoff election. So you don't actually get the majority vote because so few people show up. It's only going to be these diehards that are showing up, and they're the ones who are representing this like quote unquote majority. But really, you've got like 25% of the electorate is showing up. This
Mhm.
nowhere close to a majority of voters even.
No.
Um,
Yeah, not even a little bit.
and so ranked choice is actually it's also known as instant runoff, because what you end up doing is you just tell people what you want your next choice to be right when you cast your vote, and instead of making everybody come back, you just, all right, well, this bottom person drops off, and everyone who voted for them in first choice, what's their second choice? All right, now do we have a 50% winner? And chances are you will, and you're
Mhm.
done. And you have 100% turnout for whoever turned out for the general election. You don't have any drop off. You don't have any extra campaigning.
Mhm.
You're just done. It's,
Oh,
it's
that
it's
sounds so good.
it's easy. It's cheaper. You save a ton of money, and we already have it. We already have ranked choice voting for people who are overseas and military absentee. They already do it because a court basically said that they had to have the runoff time would be extra long so that they could get their ballots back. And they said, you know what, we're going to give them instant runoff ballots instead. And
Interesting.
so they did that 2 years ago, I think. And so that we have it. We just need to extend it to everybody else.
Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea that you could do that as an absentee ballot right now.
Only if you are overseas. So if you did an absentee from here,
Mhm.
like the no excuse absentee, you would not get that ballot. But if you were
Gotcha.
a member of the military or you were like living overseas, you would get it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And the whole point is you have to be able to request the ballot, get the ballot, make your votes, and then send it back. And if they do like the 4-week turnaround, I believe is what it is now, they can't you it's too short of a time to do all that. So they had like a 9-week runoff before, and then they passed this and they tightened it back up to 4 weeks.
Gotcha.
But I'm
I
like, let's just tighten it up to no weeks. Let's just do it all on election day.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, the first time someone explained, I think it was in a podcast actually, I think Ireland adopted ranked choice voting. I can't remember. It was some other country. And the
I
first
know
time
Maine
somebody
has it.
explained it to me, yeah, Maine has it. It's completely logical. It speeds up the process. I just don't understand well, I do understand, but it's crazy that there's opposition to ranked choice voting.
Yeah, people say it's confusing. I don't like those kind of arguments. It's the same reason they try to keep us off the ballot, and they're essentially doing is calling voters stupid,
Yeah.
which I just think is totally inappropriate. Even if some voters maybe are. it's just inappropriate to assume and say
Mhm.
like, hey, they're too stupid to deal with this,
Yeah.
because it's not. I don't know. That's just like I
And
can't
also,
believe
like,
that you would reelect that person who says, "Oh no, I'm not going to put this policy in place because you're too dumb." Like that doesn't make any sense.
yeah. Well, they're probably too dumb to understand that they were insulted.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what they're banking on.
No, like, even if you can't, like, wrap your head around ranked choice voting as a voter, I'm fairly certain you can still just vote for one person,
Yeah. Yes,
and
you
it's still
could.
a legit ballot.
You could, and what would end up happening is if your one person was, taken off the ballot in the first, like, if you voted for, let's say, Burt Jones, and that's your one and only guy, and he fell off, and it was between me and Charlie Bailey, in the runoff, then your vote would just you would just not have a vote. So
Mhm.
turnout would actually technically drop in that case, but yeah, if that's what you wanted to do, you could do that.
Yeah, which, yeah, is another argument for ranked choice voting.
Yep, yep, yeah. It doesn't have to get confusing if you don't want it to, just vote for the one guy.
Correct. Well, Ryan, what message do you wanna leave everybody with tonight?
Well, I think if you're not already involved in the Libertarian Party, which maybe if you're a listener, you probably are, but get involved. We need your help. Find a candidate you like and support them. We're not always the most organized folks, so don't get super angry if we don't get back to you right away. We got pretty small operations going, but send a check our way. Well, send a donation our way. Maybe not a check.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe go to
It's
lpgeorgia.com.
2022. Yeah. Go to gramforga.com/donate, or go to lpgeorgia.com, become a member. We need your help. The whole organization needs your help. And we need more candidates. So the other thing that Jake didn't mention is I'm the political director. So it's for LP Georgia. It's my job to recruit candidates, teach candidates, and kind of provide the support for candidates in Georgia. And I really take that to heart. That's one of the things when I stepped down as chair, I said, you know what, I want to focus on one thing and like do it well. Right
Mhm,
now it's my campaign, but political director is like that's the thing that I'm building up for so that in our off year we are rocking and rolling. And then in 2024, we've got a whole slate of candidates for not statewide. Obviously, we talked about how that's problematic, but for all of our down ballot, which is what we should really be focusing on. So
mhm,
get involved. If you're thinking about running for office, reach out to a candidate, ask them, what they're working on, how you can help, because the best way to learn how to do it is to get out there and do it.
mhm.
Most of us are learning. Don't worry if you don't know anything about anything. I don't know anything about anything. The only reason I know any of this stuff is because somebody asked me, and I said, "Let me go figure that out." And next step, next step, next step. You just roll with the punches, right? We're all
Yep.
learning. So
Oh, yeah. The
um,
only reason I'm here is because you tricked me into being the chair of DeKalb County.
that's right. I'm very tricky that way.
Awesome. Ryan, it's been a pleasure, man.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you coming on. And like you said, if you are interested at all in anything we had to say, head on over to lpgeorgia.com. There's tons of information there. And keep tuning into this podcast because we're going to keep bringing you candidates. We're going to keep bringing you local stories, special interest pieces, just so you know what's going on in politics in Georgia.